Hi guys, welcome back to our week 5 weekly meeting. And MC who is here already. We have Jojo's here, Harmon, and then May's here. Christy is here. Okay, so guys, couple update on the on your administrative stuff. So your extra points has already been added to your exam one. So if you go to your gradebook on Canvas, you're gonna see the updated points on there. And then also there's a little comment section next to the grade. So it will actually tells you how many extra points you have from all the weekly meetings. I think so far the most we have some people getting like 11 points extra on the test, which is very good. So guys, keep doing this. Remember, every time you check it with me live, you're getting 3 points on your test. And then if you're watching the recorded section, you're getting 2 points extra on the test. Okay. And also, I have graded all your discussions. So if you look at your discussion grade already on there too. Now, the grade on your first test, you guys did pretty good. I think the average in class with all the extra points added was like an 82, 83, which is very good. Okay, so keep doing what you do, and then remember, I'm always here to help. So ask me questions. All right, so let's look at this week. Now, oh, I have a question from May. So May's asking, the final exam questions are mostly from quizzes. So the same way as the quizzes and then final exam, and also every single exam, they actually come in from the same type question bank. So there are many questions on there, you've seen them before. So what you want to do, the best way to study for the test is to really study for all the quizzes. So go back, look at all the quizzes, and then you can see all the questions in the test, some of the questions in the test, okay? I wouldn't cover everything, but I would say about 80% of the questions on the exams are coming from the same question bank with the quizzes. So if you're doing pretty good on the quiz, and you'll be fine on the test. Okay, all right, so let's talk about the chapters for this week. Let me see. So I have 2 chapters to cover for this week, chapter 7, chapter 8. They are mostly definition informations. So what I would do, I will go through the calculation part of it, and then the definitions, you guys are on your own, okay? But if you have any questions regarding the definition or concept, send me email, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions. All right, so first of all, chapter 7. And then guys, just like before, if you have a question anytime during the meeting, just make sure to put it into the chat box. And then if you're watching this recorded session and you still have a question, want me to answer, don't leave the comment in the comment box for the questions. Send me the email for the questions, okay? Because I only check the comment box when I'm adding the extra points to the test. All right. So chapter 7, we're talking about inflations. Now, inflation is when the price of everything is increasing. That's inflation. So there's an example of inflation. Now, if you guys remember from your history class back in the 1920s and also a certain part of 1930s, Germany was having very high inflation. Now, inflation just means price is going up. And then in Germany, the inflation was so bad that for many people, they were getting paid twice per day. So you know how we're getting paid once every 2 weeks, but in Germany in 2030s, 2020s, employees getting paid twice per day. So basically what you do, you work for half day, and then you take a half day pay, and then you buy whatever you need, and then you work at the second half day. And the reason why that is because if you wait until end of the day to buy whatever you need, the price is higher. So price was increasing almost every single hour. And then for a lot of people, when they go out to eat, they prefer to pay first and eat. Because if you eat and pay, price is higher. So inflation is very bad, and nobody wants to save money. Because if you save money, then the money in the bank is actually working less and less and less. Because the price of everything else is increasing very fast. So nobody saves money, and nobody is making any long-term plans. Nobody, is trying to, expand the business, hire more workers, because what's the point if you hire more workers, then there's so many uncertainty out there, you might not make money at all. So the production was at a halt. So they were only producing the necessities. So the economy is very bad, inflation is going up, nobody's making any money, and unemployment is very high. So inflation is bad. And then another example for inflation, this is a country called Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe was having record inflation back in 2010. They had a little inflation in 2007, but 2010 was the worst. So in 2010, let me give you a reference point. So for our inflation in America, our inflation this year is about 1.5%. In 2010, their inflation in Zimbabwe was about 1.2 billion percent. That's a 1.2 billion with a B. Now, so it's very, very high inflation. And then that 1.2 billion percent was only an estimate of how much inflation was, because nobody knows for sure how much inflation was in Zimbabwe. It was just very, very high. Let me give you an example of how high the inflation was. So imagine in February of 2010, you go to a store in Zimbabwe, you buy a loaf of bread. It will cost you about 2,000 Zimbabwe dollar. And then by the same year, by August 2008, you go to the same store, you buy the loaf of bread, will cost you about 1.2 trillion dollar. So that's a trillion with a T. So money was worthless. And then it was so bad that pretty much everybody in Zimbabwe was a billionaire. No, so really, if you want to ask your friends, about this question, which country had the most number of billionaire, the answer is Zimbabwe, or its answer was Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe back in 2008, inflation was so bad and the money was worthless, everybody was a billionaire. Now, for our currency, our smallest bill is $1. For Zimbabwe back in 2008, their smallest bill was $1 billion. So if you have any money, you are at least a billionaire. Okay, but money's worthless. Imagine you go buy bread, costs you $1.2 billion. You go buy banana, costs you $3 billion. You go buy apple, costs you $5 billion. So every prices was measured in the increment of billions. So money was worthless. Okay. So there was some record high inflations. Let me see. So inflation, notice the definition is the increase in the average prices of good. So inflation is when price goes up, and then deflation is when price goes down. So inflation is bad, and deflation is also bad. So most countries doesn't have this problem, but sometimes when the economy goes through a recession, then we have a deflation. That's when the average price is going down. Now, inflation is bad. Deflation is even worse, because if you have deflation, company will reduce number of output. Now, think it this way. Suppose I'm a company and I'm producing whatever I'm producing. Let's say I'm producing bananas. Now, nobody's buying bananas, so price is going down. And then on my side, I'm looking, look, the price is going down. That means nobody is like my bananas. So I wouldn't produce that many bananas anymore. So what do? I lower my production. Now, if I lower my production, that means some of my employees will be laid off. Now, when they're getting laid off, they will go home with no paycheck. So they would lower their consumption. When those consumption goes down, the demand for banana goes even lower. So deflation is a never-ending cycle that can make the economy worse and worse and worse. Okay. So don't think as deflation is good, deflation is also bad. Actually, sometimes even worse. All right, okay, so no difference between the nominal income and real income. Nominal income is the number on your paycheck. The real income is how much good you can buy. So if your nominal income is increasing, that might be a good thing, because you also need to consider what is the inflation. Okay, so suppose that let's just say that our income right now, we make $1,000 per month, and then so that's our income. At the same time, let's suppose the only thing we buy Apple. We don't buy anything else. And an apple, they are $1 each. So which means, but by end of the, for each month, we can buy 1,000 apple. Now, let's suppose next month that our income, our nominal income, is increasing. So our next month's nominal income, let's call it $2,000. So we double our income now, which is very good. But imagine if the price for Apple is also increasing, and then the new apple price is at $4 per apple, then are we better off or worse off? Well, your income is more now, but if you look at how many apples we can buy, we can only buy 500 apples. So which means we're actually worse off. So this $1,000, this $2,000, those are your nominal income. Now, how many apples you can buy? This is your real income. So it's the purchasing power of how much good you can buy. So your nominal income is before inflation adjustment. Real income is adjusted for inflation. So besides whatever the price increases, just how much more stuff you can buy, that's your real income. So consumers, we tend to worry more about this nominal income, which is wrong. We should worry more about our real income, just how much stuff you can buy. And then guys, by the way, I have already posted the PowerPoints on your Canvas. So if you go onto Canvas, you can download the PowerPoints, okay? Let me see what else to talk about. Okay, so money illusion. Money illusion is when we use our nominal dollar to measure a person's income or wealth, which is not good, because nominal dollar. Remember, this nominal dollar, that's just how much your number on the paycheck. Okay, so again, imagine if you're in Zimbabwe, and then if you're making $1 billion per day, well, it feels very rich because you're a billionaire, but price of everything else is very expensive, so you couldn't buy anything more, so you're not rich at all, you're actually pretty poor. So that's called money illusion. So just because you have more money doesn't mean you're better off. When you're better off is when you actually can buy more stuff. That's when you're better off. Okay, so do not use nominal dollar as a measurement for how much your income is or how much wealth you have. Use your real dollar, your real income, to measure how much your income is. Let's see. All right, so here's some problems for inflation. Uncertainty, we all know what this is. You know, if you have inflation, nothing's for certain now, so people don't make long-term plans. And then if you don't make long-term plans, you don't have any investment. The investment is good for the economic growth, so which is bad. So uncertainty is bad. Speculation is also bad for the economy, because if you have speculations, then people tend to hoard on stuff they don't need, and then that's very inefficient for the economy. So so imagine that let's say there's a market for speculation for Justin Bieber CDs. So now, personally, I don't like Justin Bieber. I'm actually not a big fan of Justin Bieber. But you know, if I believe that Justin Bieber CD will be more expensive in the future, what do I do today? I buy more of it, even though I don't want them, but I'm gonna buy more of it. I will hold on to it, so I'll hoard them, and then when the price is higher, and then I sell them at a higher price. That's called speculation. So speculation is bad for the economy, because for the real Justin Bieber fans out there, I don't know who you are, okay, but if you're a real Justin Bieber fan, then you want to buy the CDs. But because we have all these hoarders, all the speculators, the price for the CD is higher and higher and higher, which is very, very inefficient. Okay, so that's also bad. And last one is called bracket crypt. Now this one is relevant to our current time right now, especially for tax season. That our current tax code is based on income bracket. So for different level of your income, you're gonna pay a different income tax. Now that's a topic for 2002, but let me show you an example of it, okay? Tax bracket 2016. All right, so this is the income tax bracket for this current year. Okay, so this is for married filed jointly. So if you're married and then if you're filing with your spouse, you're gonna using this bracket here. And then if you guys notice that for different level of your income, you pay different income tax rate. Here, let me use a different image. That's not a good image. Which which one is a good image? I want to use this one. All right, that looks good. Zoom in a little bit. All right, so for your first $9,275, you pay a 10% rate. And then for the portion that's between 9,276 to 36,650, you pay a 15% rate. So if we have inflation, and then as the income goes higher and higher, so it goes 10, 15, and then it goes 37,000, 91,000, 109,000. So as income goes higher and higher and higher, so is the tax rate you pay. So for many consumers, for many citizens, when our nominal income is increased, so they will push you to a different bracket, and therefore you pay a higher tax rate. So your tax is more. And if your tax is more, then you take home less money. So the last concept of this downside of inflation is that it will cause bracket creep. That for many taxpayers, always inflation, that their nominal income will be increased. So which means they will pay a higher income tax, and then they have a lower real income to buy out everything they need. Okay, so that's called bracket creeps. All right, next. So hyperinflation is anytime you have an inflation rate that's more than 200%, that's called hyperinflation. So Germany was having hyperinflation, Zimbabwe was having hyperinflation, and then currently, if you guys look at Venezuela is also having hyperinflation. So anytime inflation more than 200%, that's called hyperinflation. And then again, deflation, it just want to have a decrease in the average prices. All right, so to measure our inflation, we're going to learn this thing called CPI, Consumer Price Index. Now, Consumer Price Index measures the average prices consumer buy on goods and service. And then if you look at the breakdown of the Consumer Price Index, imagine a basket, and in this basket is all the goods and service consumer buys. So this is your housing, transportation, your food and beverage, your healthcare, your phone service. So all the stuff you guys spend money on, we're going to put in basket. And this basket, we call this one the Consumer Price Index. And I want you need to remember that for this basket, the biggest spending category, so for any typical household, the category we spend the most money on is housing. The consumer will spend about 40% of our spending on housing. Now this housing, this is your rent, your utilities, your mortgage payment, your tax on the property. So all the money you spend on housing is about 40% of our total spending. Okay. All right, so to measure our CPI, the price index, there's a step. So the first thing you do is to select the basket. So know what the basket you have, and also know what the prices you have. And then once you have the basket, you want to choose a base year. So this base year is your reference year. So every year you're going to be measured against this base year. So suppose the basket price in the base year is $12,000. The basket price in your current year is $13,200, and then your CPI. This is the formula for CPI. So it's a basket price in your current year divided by the basket price in your base year. That will be a CPI, or also times 100. So once you finish, make sure times 100. Okay, so it's going to be 13,200 divided by 12,000 times 100. So this will be 110. That's the CPI for this year. Okay. Let me see. What else is important? One thing you guys need to know about the producer price index, the PPI, your CPI, the consumer price index, is a good indicator of your inflation for today. Your PPI is a good indicator of the inflation for tomorrow. And the reason why that is because PPI measures the production cost for producers. So if producers are paying more for their production cost, when they turn around and then sell this good back to our consumers, to be charging a higher price as well. So a PPI increase, that's a good indicator that our future inflation will be higher as well. And then when using CPI to measure inflation, this is the formula for it. So inflation rate is your CPI for year 2 minus CPI for year 1 divided by CPI for year 1 times 100%. So this is missing a percentage here. That will be your inflation rate. So inflation is not decimal. Inflation is always a percentage. So just your CPI for this year minus CPI for last year, and then divided by CPI for last year. That's your inflation rate. Let me see what's important. So there are two causes for inflation. There's a demand pull inflation, which is the inflation coming from excess demand. So that's on the demand side. So every time the economy is doing very good, so consumers, we tend to buy more stuff when the economy is doing good. That's pumping too much money into the economy, and then therefore that's a demand pull inflation. A cost push inflation is anytime there is a fundamental change on the supply chain. So imagine if the price for gasoline is more now. So gas become more expensive, and then gas is used to produce everything we have. Therefore, the production cost of everything will be increasing. So there will be a cost push inflation coming from the supply side. Okay, so demand side inflation is coming, demand pull inflation coming from demand side. That's when consumers spending too much money, and then cost push inflation coming from the supply side when the producers are paying too much for cost. That's a cost push inflation. So note a COLA. So COLA is stand for cost of living adjustment. So this will automatically increase the contract price when the inflation is increasing. So guys, imagine that let's say between me and Priscilla, that Priscilla, I'll hire you. You'll be my note taker. So every week when we do the weekly meeting, I will hire you to take notes for me. And then I will pay you, let's say, I'll pay you $100 per week. So every time you do it, I pay $100. Now, that's a very good deal, right? That's what for our work, you're getting paid $100. But imagine we're going to sign a long-term contract. We're going to sign this contract for 40 years. So 40 years, and every week you take notes for me, I pay $100. Now, in the first couple of weeks, this is a very good deal because that's a lot of money for 1 hour work. But if you look at year 39, year 38, year 40, so toward the end of the contract time, the $100 doesn't worth as much as before, and then it's probably it's worthless. So the contract is not as good as anymore. So this is where COLA comes in. So COLA will automatically increase the contract price as the inflation is increasing. So between me and Priscilla, I wouldn't pay her $100 every single week. What I'll be paying her will be $100 plus whatever inflation is. So as the price of everything else is increasing, I will pay Priscilla more and more and more and more. So by the end of 40 years, this contract will still be very attractive to Priscilla. Okay. And then next is called adjustable rate mortgage. Stand for ARM. So there is an ARM, but there's no lag. So stand for ARM. So its interest rate on the mortgage changes as the inflation changes. We have ARM. ARM was very popular back in the old days, but because what happened in 2008 for the housing crisis, so today most consumers, we tend not to use ARM anymore. So we tend to have a fixed rate mortgage. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, that means your interest rate will never change. Will be the same fixed rate from year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way to year 30. Okay. All right. So know this one: the difference between real interest rate and a nominal interest rate. The nominal interest rate, that's how much the bank is paying you. So imagine if you go to a bank and then Bank of America says if you deposit money with them, they will pay you 10% interest rate. Now, 10% interest rate sounds very attractive, but you also need to think about, what are you getting back with a 10% interest rate? So you're gonna measure your interest rate against your anticipated inflation. So suppose your interest rate is 10%, and then inflation is 20%. That means the price of everything else is increased by 20%, and then your money is increasing by 10%. So in that case, your real interest rate is actually negative 10%. Now that means you don't gain any money, you're actually losing money the longer you put your money in the bank. So as long as your real interest rate is positive, that means you're doing good. But if this is negative, that means you're doing bad. Okay. I think that's it for chapter 7. Does anybody have any question on chapter 7? Let me wait for a second before I start chapter 8. There's I think a 30 seconds delay between my side and also what's on the YouTube. So let's wait for a second here. All right, so since no questions, let's look at chapter 8. Okay, so chapter 8, guys, is mostly definitions. So we're not going to go too deep into it. So make sure you know what's a business cycle. So business cycle is just alternating period of economic growth and contraction. That's a business cycle. So the same with business cycle. I'll get a question from Christine. Do I teach Econ 2 in the summer? Unfortunately, no. So guys, this summer I'm taking some time off, so I won't be teaching summer 2. But we'll teach summer, 2 in the fall semester. So if you want to check back with me sometime in April, I will let you know, guys, what my schedule is for the fall semester. But guys, the same with online classes. Doesn't matter who you take it with. You can take it with me or any other professor. You'll be using the same textbook, same online material. So it's pretty much the same class. So it doesn't matter who teaches the class. I know I'm flattered you guys like me, but if your schedule is very constraining, just give somebody else a try. I guarantee you, they're just as good as me. Okay. All right, so a business cycle is just this alternating period of economic growth and contraction. So the economy is like your 4 seasons. We have our spring, our summer, our fall, our winter, and then business cycle also have their spring, summer, fall, winter. So they're called differently. So this, let me show you what it's called. Which we have it on here. Here we go. Okay, so peak, trough, recession, and expansion or recovery. So every time, now if you look at our GDP is going up and down, up and down, up and down. So at the highest point of GDP, this is called a peak. At the lowest point, it's called trough. And when GDP is going down, this is called recession. When GDP is going up, this is called recovery or also called expansion. So GDP going down called recession, going up called recovery or expansion. That's a peak, that's a trough. Okay. Let me see if I skip anything important on there. All right, so a classical economics is that in economics, the many economists believe the market is very efficient. That because your price and wage are all flexible, then if anything happens to the marketplace, the market will self-adjust. So the key word here is that it will self-adjust. So it worked pretty well for many years until the Great Depression. So when the Great Depression hit, the market couldn't self-adjust. So we couldn't, the economy couldn't pull itself back to where it was before. So this is where the John Bernard Keynes come in. So the Keynes theory of economics. So the Keynes theory of economics is that there's an insufficient amount of demand. So that's a key word here. So every time you have this insufficient amount of demand, government must play an active role in the economy. So every time the economy slows down, government must pick up the slack and then buy the stuff from the economy and then make sure that the ball is still rolling. So that was what the John Maynard Keynes theory is. So there's an insufficient amount of demand, and then each government must do their part and then buy any excess supply of the economy and then make sure the income still flows, resource still flows, and economy still flows. All right, we'll talk about this. That's just definitions, very simple stuff. Oh, so a recession is when you have 2 or more consecutive quarters of lower GDP. So for 6 months, if your GDP goes down and down, this is called recession. The depression is a more severe recession. It's when you have 4 quarters or 1 full year, so 12 months of lower GDP. We call this a depression. Now, so far, we only have 1 depression in the economy. That was in the Great Depression back in 1929. But the recession, we have them every 5 to 7 years. So the last recession was in 2008, 2009. And then, so which was almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago. So we're a little overdue on the recession. But guys, don't worry. By the time you guys graduate from college, we'll be just in time for another recession. Okay. So stay in school. All right, stay in school. All right. Let me see what else is important. All right, so we also need to talk about the AD and AS, the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve. But on the next 2 chapters, so no definition for now. So aggregate. Now we studied the demand curve. Demand curve. The demand curve is. The demand curve is on the individual good and service. So it's on one good, one service, one market, one industry. The aggregate demand curve is the total quantity of all the output. So everything we produce, every good and service produced, and this measured in your aggregate demand curve. So the demand of everything we buy. And then one thing you guys need to notice, this will be on the next chapter, that when we measure demand curve, we study the effect between price and quantity. When we measure the aggregate demand curve, we study the effect between the price level, or CPI, and your real GDP. So CPI, the price level, is the price of everything. Real GDP is the quantity of everything. So still between P and Q, but on the bigger scale now. So your AD curve is downward sloping, and then because of these 3 effects over here. So the first effect is this real balance effect. The reason why the AD curve is downward sloping, so if you graph it, your aggregate demand curve, on the vertical axis, this is the price level. On the horizontal axis is the real GDP. And then AD curve looks something like this. Now, there are 3 reasons why it's downward sloping. The first one is that if you hold on to cash, so you have a lot of cash on hand, that if the price level is increasing, the buying power of your money is less and less and less. So you can only buy less stuff. So therefore, as the price level is going up, our real demand is going down. And then vice versa, if your price level is going down, your real demand is going up. So you can buy more stuff now. And the second one is called foreign trade effect. That this is the difference between your domestic price and an overseas price. So imagine that, let's suppose in America, the price of everything become more expensive now. So chicken become more expensive, beef become more expensive, your rice become more expensive. Then what do? We buy the same good from other countries. Now, once we do that, once we buy the same good from other countries, then our import will be increasing, export will be decreasing, and then your domestic aggregate demand curve will be decreasing. Okay. And by the way, if you look at all the import-export between US and other countries, we do export a lot of chicken to countries like China. So, but again, we import chicken as well, but we import white meat chicken, we're exporting dark meat chicken. So for all the chicken feet, chicken head, chicken necks, the stuff we don't eat, we send to China. Okay, or you can go to Chinatown. They have in Chinatown. Last one is the interest rate effect. So so this one has to do with the money you're spending and the money you're borrowing. That's very important. So as the price is getting more and more expensive, consumers will need more money to buy the same stuff like before. So we need to borrow more money. When we borrow more money, this will cause the interest rate to go up. So at a higher interest rate, then consumers tend to borrow less money. When we borrow less money, then the spending goes down. The spending goes down. The aggregate demand also goes down. Okay, so because this three effect over here, that our aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. And then aggregate supply curve, this is the upward sloping aggregate supply curve. Okay, so demand curve is going down, and then supply curve is going up. So just like before, okay. So that's your aggregate demand curve, aggregate supply curve. And then this intersection is called a Markov equilibrium. So this shows where the economy is. So from this intersection, you have your price level. You also have your output level. So how much you produce and what's the CPI and the inflation is for the economy. And this, again, this is your real GDP. So how much stuff you produce. Not important. I'm going to talk more about the ASCD curve in the later chapters. That's in the next chapter, okay? Let me see what else. Okay, so notice this is important that now your AS curve. Oh, somebody's calling me. It's my wife. Oh well. Call her back. Okay, so just hung up on you. All right. Now for your regular supply curve is going upward. So that's your short run aggregate supply curve. Your long run aggregate supply curve is a perfectly vertical line. Now the difference between the long run and the short run supply curve is that the long run supply curve, this shows your potential. Now remember something you learned before, this curve looks like this. Remember the PPF? So the PPF, that is your long run potential. So long run potential is illustrated by using your long run aggregate supply curve. Now, anytime you're away from long run potential, then something's going on. So if you find yourself to be on the left side of a long run potential, this is when economy is going down. That's called recession. And then if you go into the right of long run potential, this is when the economy is actually expanding. So that's a economic recovery or economic expansion. Okay. Oh, Jojo, it's okay. Don't worry. I won't be in trouble. All right, let me see. I think this is it for chapter 8. All right, so that's it for chapter 8. Guys, does anybody have any question right now to ask me? Let me wait for a second. All right, let me see who is here today. We have Christine, Harmon, Jojo, May's here. Lane Hernandez is here. Priscilla's here. Sandra's here. Kwan's here. Christine is here. All right, so so guys, yeah, if nobody have any questions, I guess we're gonna end it here today. And it's also a good time to call my wife back before I get into trouble. Okay, so guys, if nothing else, email me for any questions, and then Harmon, send me email, and then let's figure out what happened to your assignment, okay? And then guys, I will see you this time next week. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.